can you see there's water here? I don't know if you notice. And there is a cave with water, right? Cave with water. Sherman is standing on top of the cave. I hope it will not collapse. It's okay, Sherman. It did not collapse for 2,000 years. You might have a chance to stand here for another 1,000 years because you can see that the roof is made of stone, right? The roof is made of stone, not of wood. So it's a rather strong roof. And what is under Sherm is water, okay? And this is a special installation for the Jewish ritual purity. Jewish ritual purity. Can we learn this word mikveh? M-I-K-V-A-H? Mikveh. It can be mikveh, mikveh. Doesn't matter how you pronounce it. But it's just a word for Jewish ritual purity, which existed in the days of Jesus.
And they usually put those in every family dwelling?
Correct. Every family. Notice it's not in the house, it's in a courtyard. So maybe more than one household. In other words, me, my brother, my other brother, and my uncle will use that, right? Something like that. So we will use this for ritual purity. And you know what my uncle will have over there? He will have a carpentry shop. All right, and so it will be a business. And in the other corner, we will have a place to store our grain. Okay, so something like that. So we will be utilizing this space. And this is here is the place for ritual immersion or mikvah. And by the way, this is reflected in the New Testament. The fact that the Jews were doing a ritual immersion, a ritual washing, is reflected in the New Testament, but not directly, maybe indirectly, simply because it was such a common practice for the Jewish people that they did not have to explain this. Okay. When do the Jews have to go through the mikveh? By the way, how do they do that? I will not demonstrate this to you for two reasons. A, the water there is pretty ugly. It's not very clean. They did not change it for 2,000 years, probably. That's A. And B, you have to do it naked. And since you guys are filming, it would not be very nice. But that tells you that there was some kind of a wooden structure here, right? Wooden structure here, like a foyer, where people would take their clothes off without being exposed. Okay, and if it's a bigger house, a richer house, they might have one mikveh for men and the other one for women. Maybe in this case, it will be different time, different hour. I don't know. Okay, something like this. So you take your clothes off. Can you see, those of you guys who are sitting here, you can see the indentation here, right here. That is for a bolt, right? To close the door. It's for a door here. And so you will walk down into this cave full of water, and then you will sit down for a minute or a few seconds, right? Yeah. And immerse yourself completely in the water, and then you get out and you ritually clean. Would that remind you of anything? Something? Baptism. Right, baptism. By the way, anybody knows the translation of the word baptism? Because the word baptism is not English word. Would you agree with that? It's not English. It's Greek. Baptismo is a Greek word meaning what? To immerse. Right? It means immersion. Okay. May I ask you, would you suggest when do the Jewish people had to immerse themselves? What would be the case when they had to immerse themselves for ritual? Remember, ritual. This is not hygiene. Now, hygiene, there would be like a jar of water here. You will splash up, you take your clothes off, you splash up on yourself, you wash yourself. That's your hygiene. Okay. This is religion. Okay, this is a tradition. So when do the Jews have to take a mikveh? Any idea?
Maybe after they make animal sacrifices, they wash the blood off them or something like that.
But what makes you unclean? Okay, all right. Now here's the thing. Remember, there's a little bit of a confusion. The temple. Where is the temple?
Jerusalem.
The temple. There's only one temple that was in Jerusalem in the days of Jesus. In the village, they had a synagogue. Okay. What's the difference between the temple? There are many differences. There's one major difference between the temple and the synagogue.
Temple is where God's presence was.
And the temple is where you do the sacrifice.
The sacrifice. The sacrifice. The temple is the place for the sacrifice because they will argue about God's presence. Okay? But nobody will argue that the sacrifices must be done in only in one places, which is the temple in Jerusalem. We will see the ruins of that, you and me. All right, we'll go there, we'll see that. What is a little bit confusing is that the American Jews call the synagogues temples. Okay? Which is historically not correct. That is part of a Jewish conspiracy to confuse the Gentiles so they will confuse those things. Okay. But they should call the synagogues synagogues or gathering places. That's the we'll learn that when we get there. Okay. And yes, you must take a mikveh before you go to the temple. Before. Again, what's the reasoning? It's a simple reasoning. You want to prepare yourself to meet with God. Okay? It's just a ritual to prepare. And we will see installations like that outside the temple platform in Jerusalem. There are many of those. So we will see those. So fine. Before you go to the temple, you got to do that, but it's only when you're there in Jerusalem. Okay, very good. What else makes you unclean? That is true. You have to do that when you are unclean.
Dealing with the body of dead person.
Right, absolutely. Do you have to deal with dead bodies? Yes, you do. Right? As a farmer, what happens? Your animals die. Right? You slaughter animals. Your animals die, etc. You deal with that all the time. Plus, your family, your relatives die, whatever. That makes you unclean. Whether you're male or female, that makes you unclean. Does it make you a sinner? No, you're not a sinner. You're physically unclean. All right. So you go down, immerse yourself, get up, you're clean. Very good. What else?
Certain diseases.
Diseases.
Leprosy, you'd have to be
Not
removed.
necessarily. Leprosy is an extreme case indeed, but diseases. Why is that? What's the logic behind it? You attribute your healing to God. In other words, if you had a disease or whatever, you healed now, you will go immerse yourself, and by doing that, you thanks God for your healing. All right? You thanks God for your healing. Again, that is reflected in the New Testament. Now, where is this reflected in the New Testament? In the story, let's say, of a healing at the pools of Bethesda. Remember, there was a paralytic that was healed at the pools of Bethesda. Okay, and then he goes where? To the temple. What for? To give thanks to the Lord for his healing. He probably had to do mikveh, or he had to do this immersion before he did that. Okay, the dead body. They're dealing with a dead body. Where is this reflected in the New Testament? Can you remember the story of Good Samaritan? Remember the guy that was beaten up, the Jewish fellow that was beaten up by the robbers? Remember, you have a priest that passes by, you have a Levite that passes by. They do not help the guy. Why is that? Because they're afraid that the guy's dead, and if they take the dead body, that makes them ritually unclean. Okay, so that's there. Okay, what else? Weddings. A bride must be clean before getting married, before the wedding, because they're supposed to have intimacy with the husband. She got to be clean, okay? And she has to take a ritual bath before the wedding. Where is that reflected? Remember the first miracle that happened at the wedding?
Changing the water
Changing
to
water
wine.
into wine in Cana, right? When they run out of wine, then Jesus sent the person to where? To the basement, where the big jars were. What for? For this, for the mikveh. In other words, there were big jars in the basement of the house with water, just with water, in order to replace this ugly 2,000 years old stuff, which is there. You know, that smells not so nice, and I don't want to get in there.
You know,
But
you
if
know
you
the
put
word,
the new water, I will.
you know the word funky?
Funky.
Yeah.
It is funky. That's why they didn't have jars, but they had a little. Can you guys see another little pocket over there, a little cave?
Yeah.
That's just the water storage there for the mikveh. Right? It's a fresh, better, cleaner water that is there, and then you replace this one with a cleaner water. Okay, so wedding. Actually, for women on monthly basis, they had to make themselves clean. They had to be clean. Again, part of the life with a husband. They got to be clean. All right, so they would have to do that every month until today. Observant Jewish women will do that mikveh until today. Okay, so you can see a number of cases that the Jew. Oh, I forgot probably the most important one. The most important one, you have to go into mikveh if you decide to convert and become a Jew. What do you do in the days of Jesus? You'll have to sacrifice in the temple, and you will have to go through the immersion, and males have to be circumcised. Okay, so those are cases that the Jewish ritual purity functioned in the days of Jesus, and you can see that the word, that the idea of baptism, of immersion, that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from, right? In a Christian
Did
tradition.
they have to change the water or clean it or do something?
They would scoop the water out, use it for irrigating their fields, and put a new water in it. The rabbis actually would argue when the water becomes dirty. Oh, you know. So obviously, if you have money to change it every day, you'll change it as much as you can. But they would agree with one thing. Remember that the rabbis will go with a stick, wooden stick. If they take a stick, put it in a mikveh, and the stick stands, the water must be changed. And then it's really, really
Mickey, would that stick stand? Water stand?
I would think so.
That is
I
funky
think
water.
it is the kind of water that the stick will stand. Again, it's just a matter of practicality. Right? So that's now. May I challenge you with something? You might be interested in that. The word baptism, right? The word baptism in English Bible. Why do you use Greek word instead of English word? Right? In any passage in the New Testament that we read about baptism, we will use the word baptism.
Make it more mysterious.
No. No, thank you for but right, but why would we translate other words and not translate this word?
No religious conflicts over it.
No, there is a proper word.
Religious conflicts over it.
There is a religious conflict. It's a political reason.
Well, that's what I said, to make it have a, what's what I meant, was like it have an aura of religiosity.
No. We'll find this. We'll find this political reason in just one moment. But there is a word in English, and that's immersion. It's the word immersion. The word baptismo in Greek means immersion. Okay? But when the Bible was translated into English, remember when? How many years ago? For the first time? Into English?
400.
No, before.
400.
No, that's the King James, right? The King James Version. We're celebrating what? 400 years of King James translation. Okay? And when they were translating the Greek into English at King James time, if you translate this immersion in England, then you'll upset the Catholics in England. Okay. But if you translate sprinkling, you'll upset the Protestants in English, the Anglicans and the Puritans and whatnot in English. So it can cause what? A civil war again. All right, so that's why the translators decided not to translate the word, but transliterate the word. Okay, and for political reasons, you might be interested maybe to know what are the other languages, the words that the other languages are using. I'll give an example. Since I know Russian, the Russians are using a Russian word for baptism. They're not using Greek word, right? They don't use the word baptism or corruption of that. They're using Russian word, which actually means to crucify. Sherman, how old were you when you were crucified? I would ask you if we were speaking Russian at the time.
In that sense of the word, probably about 9 months, I think, 9 months old.
Okay, Sherman was 9 months old when he was crucified. Does it make sense? Yes, it does. I think so, right? Meaning what? You died with Jesus, you risen with Jesus to the new life, you've been baptized. Right? Okay, here we go. So the Russians are using a totally different word. Isn't that interesting? Totally different. We had no connection with this. No connection whatsoever. There's rather a theological connection. Yes, well, as if we're crucified with Jesus. Okay, but there is no connection with actual ritual here of immersion. Right? I thought that you might like to know where the origins of baptism came from. And now we will go to the synagogue and to be continued in the synagogue.